If I were to ask you to give the Earth a color, what would that color be? Chances are most of you thought of blue. Seen from outer space, our tiny speck of dust is most definitely dominated by this color. And that, of course, is because most of the Earth is covered by oceans. Today's video is a collection of the most fascinating facts you might not know about Earth's oceans. Hello and welcome to 7 Facts. First, let's talk numbers. On average, 71% of our planet's surface is covered by water. 97% of that is in the oceans. What does that mean? It means 360 million square kilometers of seemingly endless oceans that contain 1.4 billion cubic kilometers of water. While that sounds like a huge amount, and to be frank, it is, compared to the entire planet, our oceans are nothing more than shallow puddles. In fact, by volume, there's more air than water on Earth. Be that as it may, this is still a lot of water on a single planet. And all of this water isn't just sitting there. It's doing all sorts of weird, complicated and life-sustaining stuff. Like evaporating. Every 24 hours, around 1,000 cubic kilometers of liquid water turn into vapor, which leads to humidity, clouds, rain, which give rise to rivers, lakes, and a planet-wide water-dependent biosphere. Water vapor is also the most important greenhouse gas in the atmosphere, which complicates global warming even more. Anyway, back to the oceans. As we all know, seawater is salty. The reason is there are actual salts dissolved in the water, washed down by rains from land or released by underwater volcanoes. It is estimated that there are about 50 quadrillion tons of salts in Earth's waters. All of that salt actually makes seawater heavier than freshwater. Out of 1,035 kilograms of seawater, 35 kilograms are salts, which is why you'll only see oceans freezing at temperatures below -2 degrees Celsius. The salts basically interfere with water molecules so that they can't hook onto ice crystals as easily. Last but not least, let me tell you why the oceans are blue. Well, first of all, despite what you might have heard, water is not colorless. It actually has a tiny blue tint to it. But this color is only slightly evident in large quantities of water. This, however, is not the reason why Earth is a blue planet. Also, it's not because the oceans reflect the sky. Oceans, seas, lakes, and so on are generally blue because water absorbs colors in the red part of the light spectrum. The blue part of light, however, is scattered by water molecules in different directions, and that's the light that gets reflected back into your eyes, which is why we can see blue oceans. Same is true for the sky, by the way. Okay, let's leave the numbers behind and start exploring. There are 5 oceans on Earth, or 7 if you divide the Pacific and the Atlantic into North and South. The scariest and loneliest one is the Southern or Antarctic Ocean. It encircles Antarctica and it's not a pleasant place to be. Winds are strong as hell, giant waves are not uncommon, and falling into those waters is not a good idea. The Antarctic Circumpolar Current surrounds the continent, carrying daily about 165 million tons of water around it. The icebergs that roam in these waters can be gigantic, up to hundreds of meters. It is estimated that the icebergs that form here each year hold enough fresh water to meet the needs of every single person for several months. Between the latitudes of 40 to 70 degrees south, the area is known by sailors as the Roaring Forties, where all of these dangers meet. Icebergs, strong winds, fast currents and large waves, all unimpeded by any landmass, puts in danger any vessel that dares to enter. You come here at your own risk, since the remoteness of this region makes search and rescue operations nearly impossible. On the opposite side of Earth lies the smallest of the oceans, the Arctic. It's also the shallowest, the least salty, and the coldest. This is an ocean that's largely covered by ice, although the extent of the ice has changed dramatically in the last decades. As it stands today, we could end up with an ice-free Arctic Ocean in the summer by the year 2040. The consequences of that would be dramatic. Apocalyptic might be a better word. Ice reflects light, Without it, the dark northern ocean would absorb more heat, which would warm Earth even more. Or that fresh water would also disrupt global ocean currents, and that would make huge areas uninhabitable by humans. Sea levels would rise, storms would intensify, and the large methane deposits in the Arctic would be released into the atmosphere. Methane is, by the way, a much stronger greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. But hey, there's an upside to this too. Without the Arctic ice, ships could cut their trips between America, Europe and Asia by as much as 8,000 kilometers. So there's that. You probably don't realize just how much our oceans affect our lives. But they do. They practically control our climate. The perfect example for this is the famed Gulf Stream. This is a warm Atlantic Ocean current originating from the Gulf of Mexico to Florida, the east coast of the United States and Newfoundland of Canada. From there it continues as the North Atlantic Current, encompassing the shores of northern and western Europe. This current is a phenomenal force. Every hour, 90 trillion tons of water pass Cape Florida on their way north, holding more heat than 20 million nuclear power plants. The consequences of this system are great. Without it, most of Europe would be several degrees colder than it is today. Based on current climate simulations, the UK and Western Europe would experience winters 5 to 10 degrees Celsius colder without the Gulf Stream. Don't believe me? Look at this map. Look at the latitudes of major European cities. They're basically in line with Canada, and we all know what Canadian winters are like. So yeah, the Gulf Stream is a big deal. But its influence reaches out even further. Monsoon seasons and rains in places like South America, West Africa, and even India are greatly affected by this current. Of course, predicting climate behavior is very, very hard, so the influence of the Gulf Stream might be under or overrated. Don't fret though, we might see what the world looks like without the Gulf Stream in just a few decades, because of global warming. It's hard to say when the collapse will happen, but we're already nearing an irreversible tipping point. In 2021, the current reached its lowest speed in 1600 years. If we are to believe rumors, but also some documented events, some areas of our oceans are mysterious and dangerous. Such might be the case in the infamous Bermuda Triangle, an area between Bermuda, Florida and Puerto Rico, where ships and planes seem to disappear without a trace. As with any myths and legends, details of this story have been exaggerated or were straight up lies. The numbers that go around are some 50 ships and 20 planes that since 1950 have gone missing in this area without any obvious reasons. But in fact, some disappearances never happened, others were exaggerated. Nevertheless, accidents do happen, shipwrecks can disappear, but they can all be explained by science. For instance, the fast and powerful Gulf Stream passes through this area, so any wreckage can be carried away fast. This area is also prone to violent storms and hurricanes, and in fact many hurricanes passed through the Bermuda Triangle. And of course, human error and stubbornness is always a concern. The idea of methane hydrates, a natural gas, bubbling up to the surface, making ships lose their buoyancy has been largely disproven. Not because it can't happen, such a release of gas would indeed cause rapid sinking of a ship, but nothing like that happened in the Bermuda Triangle for at least 15,000 years. The idea of compass variations or some weird fluctuations in the magnetic field that would disorient ships and planes was also easily disproven. And don't get me started with the paranormal explanations. So, is the Bermuda Triangle real? Yes, it is a real, actual place, but it's not really out of the ordinary. These waters are indeed prone to more violent storms, but in fact the number of accidents here are in no way above average or even concerning. Sorry, no mystery here. One of the biggest events caused by oceans is El Nino, Spanish for the boy. It was named by Peruvian fishermen who noticed the signs of this phenomenon appearing around Christmas, thus naming it El Niño de Navidad, a reference to the newborn Christ. So what is El Nino? Basically, it's a warm phase of the Central and Eastern Pacific Ocean, when an area larger than the United States warms up several degrees above average. This warming causes a shift in the atmospheric circulation, with rainfall becoming reduced over Indonesia, India and Australia, while rainfall and tropical cyclone formation increases over the tropical Pacific Ocean. The trade winds, which normally blow from east to west along the equator, either weaken or start blowing from the other direction. These might not sound like a big deal, but they are. During an El Nino phase, thousands of people die, the livelihood of millions is affected, and billions of dollars are lost. In Africa, rain seasons can become flood seasons and dry seasons become rainless. Same goes for the Asia-Pacific region, where tens of millions of people may experience tropical storms, floods, landslides, or in other parts, record-breaking droughts. Both North and South America are affected the same way to varying degrees. El Nino can last between 2 to 7 years, and it's a cycle that's been going on for thousands of years. While many people know about El Nino, that's not true for this phenomenon's counterpart, La Niña. This is basically the opposite of El Nino when the equatorial part of the Pacific Ocean cools down by 3 to 5 degrees Celsius. The phenomenon occurs as strong winds blow warm water at the ocean's surface away from South America across the Pacific Ocean towards Indonesia. As this warm water moves west, cold water from the deep sea rises to the surface near South America. During La Niña, tropical cyclones in the Pacific shift westwards, which increases the landfall of these storms on mainland Asia. Australia sees widespread floodings, so do the Philippines and Indonesia or southern Africa, while East Africans are left without rainfall. Again, this doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but in 2011 for instance, up to 100,000 East Africans died due to a La Niña-induced drought. La Niña doesn't usually last for longer than a few months, but just like its brother, El Nino, can cause utter devastation and complete climatic chaos. And it's all because the ocean's temperature changed by just a couple of degrees. Whirlpools, vortices, maelstroms. You know what I'm talking about. A rotating body of water that seems to want to suck you in. Maybe thanks to authors like Edgar Allan Poe and Jules Verne, it is one of the most frightening things for humans that water can do. And for people with thalassophobia, fear of deep waters, like myself, maelstroms are the biggest monsters ever. By the way, Edgar Allan Poe was the first to use the term maelstrom in English. So what are they? You know the small whirlpools that form in your sink or bath? Yeah, same principle. Two opposing currents that meet and combine. The most famous of them all is Moskstraumen, the maelstrom of Norway, featured by many authors in their writings. While it is the second strongest known whirlpool in the world, its power has been generally exaggerated. Small boats and swimmers can definitely be in danger here, but larger vessels are most definitely not. But Moskstraumen is unusual in the way that it occurs in the open sea. This is very rare, as whirlpools form in confined straits and rivers, so it's not an oceanic phenomenon. Not to worry though, there are still a million other ways you can die on the ocean. I hope this video was interesting enough to have inspired you to look into it further on your own. If you liked it, leave a like and subscribe. You can leave your comments downstairs, and you can also check out my Patreon page if you want to support me. The link is in the description. I hope to see you next time. Bye.